Infrastructure is one of the most critical needs in Oregon. In the water department, as a matter of fact, we have a $7 billion deficit in water infrastructure that needs to be addressed across the state. That's a big ticket number, and that's just water. When we talk about all the other needs that we need, the roads, transportation obviously being a big ticket item, housing another big ticket item. So we have so many infrastructure needs in the state that need to be addressed. And it's going to take the work of federal, local, and state legislators to get this done, to get the appropriate funding, because it's all driven by the funds that are available. So if we are not addressing the infrastructure needs of the state, the needs are only going to get worse, obviously. It's only going to cost more to address these things. And they are widespread, and they touch every aspect of the state as well.
How do we pay for keeping our roads up to see, because there's no such thing as a cheap bridge, there's no such thing as a cheap road, and it's a challenge for all of us. And so we try to utilize our resources, but again, the expenses are larger than our ability to do that. And it's not just my city, it's all the cities that we have to deal with, trying to come up with ways to pay for things, and nothing's gotten cheaper, and it is a real challenge with infrastructure. You also have sewer, you have water, you have stormwater, and people don't realize what it takes to maintain and operate those kind of things, to meet the clean water rules and to provide the kinds of things that people want. You know, everybody wants to pass off the expenses. Well, let's pay for it next year. Let's pay for it next year. There is no next year, because you got to get it done.
Aging infrastructure is a critical concern for our community. We have a need for a new water treatment plant, a wastewater digester, as well as street infrastructure needs.
We're looking at infrastructure issues. You know, how do we address aging infrastructure, including water specifically, but also roads as well. And also probably the big issue I think most of our cities are dealing with is projected revenues and how we continue to provide the services that our communities expect with reduced annual budgets every year.
Streets is that's probably in our top four issues with regards to the community of Pendleton. We're trying to help inject input from our constituents to help find a funding solution. We've identified that we need about $2.2 million a year.
The federal government has told us that we need to build a filtration plant for our water supply, which is going to cost $800 million or more for a problem which is questionable whether it even exists. And so I'm hoping that they will help provide some funding for that, but there's no guarantee of that.
We've got a lot of old infrastructure in the ground and in the sky, telephone wires and things like that, water pipes. And we find that, occasionally in Cottage Grove, we still dig up a wooden pipe, which is astoundingly obsolete. And the federal government used to provide a lot of money to help create this infrastructural system we have across the country. But since that spigot was turned off some decades ago, more and more deferred maintenance, as they call it, has happened, where you're not spending as much money replacing things as you would like to because you don't have the money to do it. And so you're having to use pipes that are in the ground a lot longer than their expected lifespans, and you end up with more broken pipes, more emergency repairs, more patches where you really need to replace a thing but you can't quite afford to do so. And what that leads to is a less reliable system and poorer service for our citizens.
There are a number of issues in Washington that I think are particularly important to Oregon. Transportation and infrastructure being a key one. Congress has been trying to put together an infrastructure bill really for a year and a half, 2 years. And cities across the country, including Oregon, have significant aging infrastructure that needs assistance from the federal government to repair and correct failing infrastructure.
We need to have a renewal at the federal level of the FAST Act and get us more money into the state, get us more money via the state for our infrastructure needs. But I know there's just not enough money to go around. There's a lot of problems with our bridges, our road repair money.
We have a railroad that comes through our town. It didn't have the funding to be maintained sufficiently. Its railroad bridge went down. And as a consequence of that, we saw a lumber mill close and about 110 jobs, good jobs, leave our area. So the lack of investment in rail infrastructure in our state has had a noticeable and significantly negative impact on Coos Bay.
Our community is over 100 years old now. Some of that infrastructure is the same age. And so, we've got wood pipes in the ground, we've got failing old iron pipes in the ground, and so that infrastructure is starting to dissolve essentially. We actually have holes in the ground where there's no pipe anymore. And so trying to dig up all those, find them all first of all, and then replace them, but also fund them when it's on the backs of your city members. And so trying to put that in an affordable format so that we can still provide them safe, reliable water at an affordable price has been a unique challenge that a lot of our cities are facing right now.